The fluorescent lights of Chicago Memorial Hospital hummed their familiar midnight song as Marcus Thompson pushed his cleaning cart down the emergency department corridor. At 42, his hands bore the calluses of a man who'd worked every honest job available to keep his daughter fed and housed. The night shift paid an extra $2 per hour, money that meant the difference between Emily's piano lessons and another month of silence in their small South Side apartment. Outside, November rain pelted the windows, each drop catching the amber glow of streetlights before sliding down the glass. The ER buzzed with its usual chaos, nurses rushing between rooms, doctors barking orders, machines beeping their urgent rhythms. Marcus had learned to move invisibly through it all, a ghost in navy blue scrubs with a mop in hand. "Marcus, we've got a spill in Trauma 3, called out Nurse Peterson, barely looking up from her charts. "On it," he replied, steering his cart toward the trauma bay. 6 years working these halls had taught him that emergencies didn't wait for convenient timing. Neither did bills, rent, or the constant worry that kept him awake during the few hours he wasn't working. As he approached Trauma 3, he heard it, a sound that stopped him mid-stride. A child was crying, not the sharp wail of physical pain, but the deep, trembling sobs of pure terror. His father's instinct kicked in immediately, the same instinct that woke him when Emily had nightmares, that sensed her fears before she voiced them. He knocked softly on the curtain. "Maintenance. Is it safe to come in?" "Yes, please," came a young voice, shaky and small. "I'm scared. I can't see anything, and Mom was supposed to be here. She promised she'd come right back." Marcus pulled the curtain aside slowly. On the examination bed sat a girl who couldn't have been more than 9 years old, maybe Emily's age. Her long dark hair fell in waves around her shoulders, and her hands gripped the bed rails with white-knuckled intensity. What struck him most were her eyes, beautiful brown eyes that stared straight ahead but seemed to look through everything, seeing nothing. "Hey there," Marcus said gently, setting down his mop. "I'm Marcus. What's your name?" "Sophia," she whispered. "Sophia Chen. I fell at the museum. My head hurts, and everything's so loud here. Where's my mom? She said she'd be right back." Marcus glanced around the trauma bay. Medical equipment lined the walls. IV bags hung from poles, and the sharp smell of disinfectant filled the air. For a sighted child, it would be overwhelming. For this little girl, it must have been terrifying. A world of sounds and smells with no visual anchor. "I bet she's filling out paperwork," Marcus said, moving closer. "Hospitals have more forms than a tax office. Mind if I sit here while you wait? My daughter Emily is about your age. She hates waiting alone too." Sophia's grip on the bed rail loosened slightly. "Really? Does she go to Lincoln Elementary?" "She does," Marcus smiled. "4th grade. I'm in 4th grade too, at Riverside Academy." Sophia's voice brightened a fraction before another wave of anxiety seemed to crash over her. "But I can't see the doctor's face when they talk to me. I don't know if they're nice or mean, and the machines are so loud. What if something's really wrong?" Without thinking, Marcus did what he'd done countless times with Emily. He reached out and gently took Sophia's hand. "Hey, I'm right here. You're not alone, okay? Those machines, that beeping is just monitoring your heartbeat. That whooshing sound is the automatic blood pressure cuff getting ready. Everything in here is designed to help you, not hurt you." Sophia's fingers wrapped around his hand, holding tight. "You promise?" "I promise, and I'm going to stay right here until your mom gets back. Deal?" "Deal," Sophia said, and for the first time since he'd entered the room, she seemed to breathe a little easier. For the next 20 minutes, Marcus described everything happening around them. When a nurse entered to check vitals, he explained each step before it happened. When the automatic doors whooshed open in the distance, he identified the sound. When another patient's monitor alarmed, he explained it was just a sensor that had slipped off, nothing dangerous. "You're really good at this," Sophia said softly. "Are you a doctor?" Marcus chuckled, the sound tinged with something between amusement and old disappointment. "No, sweetheart, I'm a janitor. I clean the floors, empty the trash, make sure everything's sanitized. But I'm a dad first, and dads are experts at making scary things less scary. My mum's a doctor, Sophia said with unmistakable pride. She's the best doctor in the whole world. She works so hard, sometimes I don't see her for days. But she always comes back, and she always knows how to fix things. Sounds like a superhero, Marcus said warmly. She is, Sophia agreed. Then, more quietly, I just wish she had more time. But I know she's saving lives. That's important. Marcus felt a familiar ache in his chest. How many times had Emily said something similar about him, understanding why he worked long hours but wishing things could be different? The sacrifice of single parenthood was a weight that never truly lifted. You carried it every day, in every decision, feeling the ghost of what you couldn't provide, hovering over everything you managed to give. The trauma bay curtain suddenly swept aside with purpose. Marcus looked up expecting a nurse, but instead found himself meeting the eyes of a woman who radiated authority and exhaustion in equal measure. She wore designer clothes beneath a Burberry coat, clearly expensive even to Marcus's untrained eye, and her face bore the sharp features of someone used to making life-or-death decisions. But it was her eyes that caught him, the same warm brown as Sophia's, now wide with a mixture of relief and something else he couldn't quite identify. "Sophia!" The woman rushed forward, then stopped abruptly when she saw Marcus holding her daughter's hand. For a moment, her expression flickered, surprise, perhaps confusion, then something that looked almost like guilt. "Mom!" Sophia's whole face lit up. "You're back! This is Marcus. He stayed with me so I wouldn't be scared. He explained all the sounds and promised everything would be okay." The woman's gaze moved from her daughter to Marcus, and he saw her take in his uniform, his worn shoes, the employee badge that read, "Maintenance Staff." Something shifted in her expression, not disdain, but a complex emotion Marcus couldn't quite read. "Thank you," she said, her voice controlled but carrying an undercurrent of genuine gratitude. "I'm Dr. Victoria Chen. I got held up with admissions paperwork. I shouldn't have left her alone." Marcus stood, gently releasing Sophia's hand. She wasn't alone, and she was very brave. Dr. Chen reached for her daughter, and Sophia immediately found her mother's embrace. "Did the doctor see you yet, sweetheart?" Victoria asked, smoothing Sophia's hair. "Not yet, but Marcus was here, so it was okay." Victoria looked at Marcus again, and this time he saw the exhaustion in her face more clearly, the kind that came from carrying too much responsibility for too long. "You have a daughter," Sophia said. "Emily. She's 9, 4th grade at Lincoln Elementary. And you work the night shift here?" "Every night," Marcus confirmed. "Pays better than days. Speaking of which, I should get back to work. You take care, Sophia. Nice meeting you." "Wait." Victoria's voice stopped him at the curtain. "Thank you, really. Not everyone would—" She trailed off, seeming to search for words. "Not everyone would take the time." Marcus offered a small smile. "Every kid deserves someone to hold their hand when they're scared, Dr. Chen. No matter how busy we are." Something in her expression shifted. A crack in the professional facade, a glimpse of vulnerability. But before she could respond, a doctor entered to examine Sophia, and Marcus slipped out into the corridor, back to his cart, back to his invisible existence in the hospital's machinery. He didn't see Doctor Victoria Chen watch him leave, her hand resting protectively on her daughter's shoulder, her mind working through something that had just fundamentally shifted in her understanding of the world around her. 3 weeks later, Marcus was supervising his daughter's piano practice in their modest apartment when Emily suddenly stopped mid-scale. "Dad, there's a new girl at school. She's blind, and some of the kids are being mean." Marcus looked up from the bills spread across their small kitchen table, a monthly ritual of deciding which could be paid now and which could wait another week. "Mean how?" "They won't help her find the music room. They act like she can't hear them whispering." Emily's fingers hovered over the keys, her 9-year-old face creased with concern that seemed too old for her age. "Her name's Sophia. She seems really nice, but she always eats lunch alone." Marcus felt his chest tighten. Sophia Chen. Emily's eyes widened. You know her. We met at the hospital a few weeks ago. She was scared, and I stayed with her until her mom came back. Marcus set down the electric bill he'd been staring at. I want you to do something for me. I want you to be her friend. I want to, Emily said quickly, but I don't know how. What if I say something wrong? What if I accidentally make her feel bad? You know what makes people feel bad. Marcus moved to sit beside his daughter on the piano bench. Being ignored. Being treated like they're invisible. Just talk to her like you'd talk to anyone else. Ask her about her interests. Offer to walk with her between classes. The kindness part. You've already got that down. Emily nodded slowly, then smiled. That beautiful smile that reminded Marcus so much of her mother, gone 5 years now to cancer, leaving him to navigate parenthood alone. Okay, I'll try tomorrow. That's my girl. What Marcus didn't know was that across the city, in a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, Dr. Victoria Chen was having a similar conversation with her daughter. Mom, can I ask you something? Sophia sat at their marble kitchen island, her dinner barely touched. Mrs. Henderson, their housekeeper, had already left for the evening, leaving mother and daughter in the kind of quiet that always felt too large in the expansive apartment. Of course, sweetheart. Victoria set down her tablet. She'd been reviewing patient charts, as always, and gave Sophia her full attention, or tried to. Part of her mind was still in the operating room, replaying the surgery she'd performed that afternoon. There's a girl at school, Emily. She was really nice to me today. She helped me find the music room, and she sat with me at lunch. She didn't treat me like I was broken. Victoria felt emotions swell in her chest, gratitude, relief, and something else. That's wonderful, Sophia. What's her last name? Thompson. Emily Thompson. Victoria's hand froze midway to her wine glass. Thompson. Could it be? Chicago was a big city, but something in her gut told her this wasn't a coincidence. Did she mention her father? She said he works at night so he can be home when she gets out of school. She said he's her hero, even though he doesn't wear a cape. Sophia smiled. She sounds like me when I talk about you. Victoria stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the Chicago skyline, glittering in the December darkness. 3 weeks ago, a janitor named Marcus Thompson had shown her daughter more attention and care in 20 minutes than some of the ER staff had shown in hours. And now his daughter was showing Sophia the same kindness at school. Mom, are you okay? Yes, baby. I'm just thinking. Victoria turned back to her daughter. I want you to invite Emily over for dinner this weekend, and her father too. Sophia's face lit up with surprise and joy. Really? You never invite anyone over? It was true. Victoria's life had become so compartmentalized. Work, Sophia, sleep, repeat. Since her husband James's death 3 years ago in a car accident, she'd thrown herself into her career with an intensity that bordered on obsession. She'd built a medical practice that served both the wealthy and the underserved, and her investments had multiplied beyond anything she'd imagined. But somewhere in that success, she'd lost the ability to simply connect with other humans outside the sterile context of patient care. That night at the hospital had been a wake-up call she'd been trying to ignore. Seeing a janitor, a maintenance worker, someone she'd probably passed 100 times without seeing, give her daughter the presence and attention she herself had failed to provide, had shaken something loose in Victoria's carefully constructed world. Really? Victoria confirmed. Talk to Emily tomorrow. Get her phone number, and I'll call her father to arrange it. The next day, Emily Thompson bounded through the door of their apartment with an energy Marcus hadn't seen in weeks. Dad! Dad! Sophia invited us to dinner at her house. This Saturday, her mum wants to meet you. Marcus looked up from his second job, data entry work he did from home during Emily's school hours, his heart sinking even as he smiled at his daughter's excitement. That's great, but I don't think— Please, Dad. Sophia's my friend now. Her house is so cool. She told me about it. And her mum's really nice, please. Marcus thought about their apartment. clean but small, furnished with thrift store finds and hand-me-downs. Then he thought about Dr. Victoria Chen's designer coat, her penthouse address that Emily had mentioned. These weren't his people. These weren't his circles. But then he looked at Emily's hopeful face and remembered his own words. Every kid deserves someone to hold their hand when they're scared. "Okay," he said. "Saturday dinner." Saturday arrived too quickly. Marcus stood in front of their bathroom mirror, trying to make his one good shirt look presentable. It was clean and pressed. He'd learned to iron expertly over the years, but it was also 3 years old and showing wear at the collar. His hands, no matter how much he scrubbed, still bore the evidence of his work. Calluses, a few permanent stains from industrial cleaners, nails that would never look quite manicured. "You look great, Dad," Emily said, appearing in the doorway wearing her best dress, the one they'd bought for her school's spring concert. "You look beautiful, sweetheart." Marcus took a deep breath. "Ready?" The address Sophia had provided led them to one of Chicago's most exclusive buildings in the Gold Coast neighborhood. A doorman greeted them with professional courtesy that didn't quite hide his assessment of Marcus's worn coat. The elevator was lined with mirrors, forcing Marcus to confront his appearance multiple times during the ascent to the 40th floor. "Dad, you're fidgeting," Emily whispered. "Sorry." Marcus forced his hands to still. "Just not used to places this fancy. Sophia's just a kid like me, and her mum's just a person like you." The wisdom of 9-year-olds, Marcus thought. If only it were that simple. The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse foyer. Victoria Chen stood waiting, and Marcus was struck again by the contrast between her professional authority and something softer in her expression. She dressed casually, relatively speaking, in slacks and a silk blouse that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly rent. "Marcus, Emily, welcome." Victoria's smile was genuine as she shook Marcus's hand. Her grip was firm, confident, a surgeon's hand. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for inviting us," Marcus replied, hyper-aware of the apartment around them. The original artwork on the walls, the view of Lake Michigan through massive windows, the grand piano in the corner that made Emily gasp with delight. "Emily!" Sophia appeared from around a corner, navigating the space with practiced ease. The girls embraced like old friends, and Marcus felt some of his tension ease. Whatever awkwardness existed between him and Dr. Chen, their daughters had none of it. "Sophia, why don't you show Emily your room while your mom and I talk?" Victoria suggested. The girls disappeared down a hallway, leaving Marcus and Victoria in a living room that probably cost more to furnish than Marcus would earn in 5 years. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. "Can I get you something to drink?" Victoria asked. "Coffee? Wine?" "Water's fine," Marcus said, following her to the kitchen, a marvel of marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. Victoria poured water from a pitcher, her movements precise and controlled. But when she handed Marcus the glass, her hand trembled slightly. "I need to apologize to you." Marcus blinked. "For what?" "For that night in the ER. I left my daughter alone because I was too proud to ask for help, too determined to handle everything myself, and you, a stranger, gave her what I should have been there to provide." Victoria's voice cracked slightly. "You showed me something about myself I didn't want to see." Marcus set down his glass carefully. "Dr. Chen—" "Victoria, please." "Victoria," Marcus continued softly. "You were dealing with bureaucracy while trying to care for your scared daughter. You didn't do anything wrong. I just happened to be there." "But that's the thing," Victoria said, meeting his eyes. "You didn't happen to be there. You chose to stop. You chose to care. How many other people walked past that trauma bay and kept going? How many times have I walked past something because I was too busy, too focused on the next thing?" Marcus understood that guilt. He felt it every time he had to work a double shift and miss one of Emily's school events. Every time he couldn't afford the field trip or the new shoes when she needed them. The guilt of feeling like you were never quite enough, no matter how hard you tried. "We all do the best we can with what we have," Marcus said. "You're a surgeon, saving lives. I clean floors, but we're both single parents trying to raise good kids. That's what matters." Victoria studied him for a long moment, and Marcus had the uncomfortable feeling of being truly seen. Not his uniform, not his social class, but him. "Emily mentioned you work nights at the hospital." 6 nights a week. "Days I do data entry from home so I can be there when Em gets off school." That's 70, 80 hours a week." Marcus shrugged. "Bills don't pay themselves. And Emily deserves piano lessons, decent food, a warm home. What about what you deserve?" The question caught Marcus off guard. What did he deserve? He'd stopped asking himself that years ago when his wife died and left him with a 6-year-old daughter and a mountain of medical debt. Deserving had become irrelevant. Surviving was what mattered. "I deserve to see my daughter smile," Marcus said finally. "Everything else is negotiable." Victoria's eyes glistened, and Marcus realized she understood exactly what he meant. "James, Sophia's father, died 3 years ago. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light." She spoke matter-of-factly, but Marcus heard the pain beneath the words. "I threw myself into work, built my practice, expanded into medical investments, made more money than I ever imagined. But Sophia—" She paused, looking toward the hallway where their daughter's laughter echoed. "Sophia got a mother who was physically present but emotionally absent. Until that night in the ER, when I saw you giving her what I should have been giving her all along, simple presence." "Guilt's a heavy thing to carry," Marcus said gently. "But kids are resilient. Sophia knows you love her. Emily knows you're trying. That's what they'll remember." "Is it enough?" "Has to be," Marcus replied. "It's all we've got." Dinner was surprisingly comfortable. Victoria had ordered from an upscale Italian restaurant. No one cooked in this house, she'd admitted with wry humor, and they ate at a dining table that could seat 12. The girls chattered endlessly about school, about music, about the YouTube videos they both loved. Marcus and Victoria contributed when appropriate, but mostly watched their daughters with the unique joy of parents seeing their children happy. "Dad plays piano too," Emily announced proudly. "He taught me everything I know." "Really?" Victoria looked at Marcus with new curiosity. "I noticed you looking at our piano earlier." Marcus felt heat rise to his cheeks. "I played as a kid. My grandmother taught me. Haven't had time for it in years." "Would you play something?" Sophia asked. "Please? Emily says you're really good. I don't know if—" "Please, Dad." Emily added her voice to the request. Marcus looked at Victoria, who nodded with an encouraging smile. "I'd love to hear." And the piano was a Steinway, probably worth more than 10 years of Marcus's salary. He sat at the bench, tentatively, running his fingers over the keys without pressing down. How long had it been? 5 years? 6? He started with something simple, Beethoven's Für Elise, a piece his grandmother had loved. His fingers were stiff at first, fumbling over passages that used to flow naturally. But muscle memory gradually returned, and the music filled the penthouse with warmth that all the expensive furnishings couldn't provide. When he finished, Emily was clapping enthusiastically, and Sophia wore a smile so bright it could light the entire city. But it was Victoria's expression that Marcus would remember, something raw and unguarded, a vulnerability he hadn't seen before. "That was beautiful," Victoria said softly. "Thank you." And the evening wound down eventually, as all evenings must. As Marcus and Emily prepared to leave, Victoria walked them to the elevator. "Marcus, could I ask you something?" Victoria said as Emily and Sophia exchanged goodbyes. "Of course. Would you consider meeting for coffee sometime? Not," she added quickly, seeing his expression, "not a date. I'd like to talk more. About parenting, about balancing work and life, about, I don't know. It's been a long time since I talked to someone who understands what it's like." Marcus hesitated. Everything in his experience told him that people from Victoria's world didn't truly befriend people from his. The divide between a billionaire surgeon and a night shift janitor wasn't something easily bridged by a few hours of pleasant dinner conversation, but he remembered how natural it had felt, talking to her, how her vulnerability had mirrored his own, how rare it was to meet someone who truly understood the weight of single parenthood. "Coffee sounds good," he said finally. "I'm free weekday mornings after my shift ends." Victoria's smile was genuine and relieved. "Tuesday morning? There's a cafe near the hospital, Lucia's." "I know it. 7:30. Perfect." On the elevator ride down, Emily squeezed Marcus's hand. "She's nice, Dad, and she seems lonely, like you are sometimes." Marcus looked at his daughter with surprise and pride. When had she become so perceptive? "You're a smart kid, you know that?" "I learned from the best," Emily replied, leaning against his side. Tuesday morning arrived with Chicago's typical winter gloom, grey skies promising snow, wind cutting through even the heaviest coats. Marcus finished his shift at 7, changed out of his work clothes into jeans and his good shirt, and walked the 3 blocks to Lucia's cafe. Victoria was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffees steaming in front of her. She dressed down, relatively speaking, in a sweater and jeans, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Without the surgeon's mask of authority, she looked younger, more uncertain. "I wasn't sure how you took your coffee," she said as Marcus sat down. "So I got black and brought cream and sugar." "Black's perfect," Marcus said, wrapping his hands around the warm cup. "Thanks." For a moment neither spoke. The cafe bustled with early morning customers, construction workers grabbing quick breakfasts, nurses from the hospital on their break, students with laptops and textbooks. The real world, Marcus thought, far from the rarefied air of Victoria's penthouse. "I don't know how to do this," Victoria admitted suddenly. "I don't know how to have friends anymore. My life became so focused on work after James died that everyone else fell away. The other doctors at the hospital respect me, but we're not close. The people in my social circle—" She paused, seeming to search for words. "They're not really people I can talk to. Not honestly." "Why not?" Marcus asked gently. "Because they're all performing too. Performing success, performing confidence, performing like they have everything figured out." Victoria stared into her coffee. "You know what I make in a year? More than most people see in a lifetime. And I still go to bed most nights feeling like I'm failing at the one job that actually matters, being Sophia's mother." Marcus understood that feeling in his bones. Last week, Emily wanted to go on a field trip to the Art Institute. Cost $75. I had to tell her we couldn't afford it because I needed that money for her prescription copay. He looked at Victoria. "I make in a year probably what you spend on coffee. And I still feel like I'm failing her constantly." "But you're not," Victoria said fiercely. "Emily's bright, kind, confident. She's an amazing kid. So is Sophia. But you don't believe me when I say that about your parenting, just like I don't believe you about mine." Marcus smiled slightly. "Guilt's universal, apparently. Doesn't matter what tax bracket you're in." Victoria laughed, a real unguarded sound. "God, when did parenting become so complicated? Probably around the time we became responsible for keeping another human alive and emotionally healthy." They talked for 2 hours, about their children, about their losses, about the impossible balance of work and family. Victoria told him about James, how they'd met in medical school, how his death had shattered her world, how she'd rebuilt it through sheer force of will and 12-hour workdays. Marcus told her about Sarah, his high school sweetheart, the cancer diagnosis that came when Emily was 4, the 2 years of treatments that depleted their savings and left him with debt he was still paying off. "I'm sorry," Victoria said softly. That's unbearable." "Some days it was," Marcus admitted. "But Emily was my reason to keep going. Still is." "Do you ever resent it?" Victoria asked. "The weight of being the only one. Having to make every decision, handle every crisis, be everything they need." Marcus considered the question carefully. Sometimes I resent the circumstances, the bills, the exhaustion, the opportunities I can't give Emily. But her, never. She's the best thing that ever happened to me, even though she means sacrifice, especially because of that. The sacrifice is what makes it mean something. Victoria looked at him with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read, something between admiration and sorrow. I've been so focused on providing for Sophia, financially, materially, that I forgot the most valuable thing I could give her is time, presence. You reminded me of that. You're here now, Marcus pointed out. That's what matters. Their coffee meetings became a regular occurrence. Tuesday and Thursday mornings, 7:30, at Lucia's cafe. They talked about everything, their kids' latest adventures, their own childhoods, their fears and hopes. Marcus learned that Victoria had grown up poor, that her drive to succeed came from watching her immigrant parents work multiple jobs to give her opportunities. Victoria learned that Marcus had once dreamed of being a music teacher, but life had taken him in different directions. The girls' friendship deepened too. Emily and Sophia became inseparable at school, and their weekend playdates alternated between Victoria's penthouse and Marcus's modest apartment. Victoria never showed any awkwardness about the difference in their living situations, and Sophia seemed to prefer the warmth of Marcus's home to the expensive emptiness of her own. "Your place feels like a home," Victoria said one Saturday afternoon when she picked Sophia up. "Mine feels like a museum." "It's not the furniture that makes it a home," Marcus replied. "It's the people in it." "I know," Victoria said quietly. "I'm realizing that more and more." 2 months into their friendship, Victoria showed up to their Tuesday coffee meeting with an unusual expression, nervous, uncertain, excited. "I have something to ask you," she said, before Marcus even sat down, "and I want you to really consider it before answering." Marcus's guard went up instinctively. "Okay, I'm expanding my practice, opening a community health center in Bronzeville, focused on serving underserved populations. I want to offer positions to people who understand the community, who've lived the experiences of the patients we'll serve." Victoria took a breath. "I want to offer you a job as patient advocate and community liaison." Marcus stared at her. "Victoria, I'm a janitor with a high school diploma. I'm not qualified." "You're overqualified," Victoria interrupted. "You understand what it's like to navigate the healthcare system without resources. You know how to talk to people with respect and empathy. You've raised an incredible daughter while working 2 jobs. Those aren't things you learn in college. They're things you live." She leaned forward. "The pay would be $60,000 a year, full benefits, healthcare included. Normal hours, no more night shifts." Marcus's heart raced. 60,000 a year. Healthcare. Time with Emily during evenings and weekends. It was more than he'd dared to dream about in years. "Why?" he asked. "Why me?" "Because that night in the ER, you showed me what healthcare should be, seeing patients as people, not problems. Taking time, showing presence." Victoria's voice was earnest. "I've built a successful practice serving wealthy patients, but I grew up poor, Marcus. I've never forgotten what it's like. This community center, it's my chance to give back. And I need people who understand that mission from lived experience, not theory." "I don't want charity," Marcus said carefully. "This isn't charity. This is me offering you a job you're qualified for because I believe you'd be excellent at it." Victoria held his gaze. "But I understand if it feels complicated. Our friendship, the job offer. If you need time to think about it." "Yes," Marcus said. Victoria blinked. "Yes, you need time. Yes, I want the job." Marcus felt something unlock in his chest. Hope, possibility, the future shifting into a new shape. "I'd be honored to work with you." Victoria's smile was radiant. "Really? You're sure?" "I'm sure. When do I start?" The community health center opened 3 months later. Marcus worked alongside a dedicated team of doctors, nurses, and social workers. helping patients navigate insurance, connecting families to resources, advocating for those who'd been voiceless for too long. It was hard work, different from the physical exhaustion of his old jobs, but mentally and emotionally demanding. But it was also meaningful. For the first time since Sarah's death, Marcus felt like he was building something, not just surviving. His friendship with Victoria deepened through their work. They'd become true partners, her medical expertise and his community knowledge combining to create something neither could have built alone. The center served hundreds of patients in its first months, filling a desperate need in the neighborhood. "You were right," Victoria told him one evening as they reviewed patient feedback. "This feels more rewarding than anything I've done in my career." "Because it's not about profit," Marcus replied. "It's about purpose." "You sound like a philosopher." "I sound like someone who spent years wondering what the point of all the struggle was. Now, I know." One Saturday in late spring, the girls convinced Marcus and Victoria to take them to Navy Pier. It had been Emily's idea. She wanted to ride the Ferris wheel and eat too much cotton candy. Sophia wanted to hear the street musicians and feel the lake breeze. As they walked along the pier, Marcus watched Victoria interact with Sophia, patient, present, attentive. So different from the distracted surgeon he'd met 7 months ago in the ER. She'd learned to slow down, to be available, to prioritize the moments that mattered. "Dad, Mom, can we go on the carousel?" Emily asked, using the nickname she'd started calling Victoria weeks ago without anyone correcting her. Both adults noticed, but neither acknowledged it directly. Instead, Victoria just smiled and said, "Of course." As the girls ran ahead toward the colorful carousel, Victoria turned to Marcus. "Did you hear that?" "Yeah," Marcus said softly. "That okay?" "More than okay." Victoria's eyes glistened. "Is it okay with you that Sophia calls you Dad sometimes?" Marcus hadn't realized she'd noticed. "She hasn't." "She did last week. Asked me if it was okay to call you Dad since you're Emily's dad and Emily's like her sister." Victoria smiled. "I told her it was fine if you were comfortable with it." Marcus felt emotion rise in his throat. "I'm comfortable with it." They stood together watching their daughters on the carousel. Emily on a painted horse, Sophia on a swan, both laughing with pure joy. The Chicago skyline rose behind them, Lake Michigan stretched endlessly before them. And for the first time in years, Marcus felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. "Thank you," Victoria said quietly. "For what?" "For holding my daughter's hand when she was scared. For showing me what I was missing. For becoming my friend when I didn't know I needed one." She looked at him. "For helping me remember that success isn't measured in dollar signs, but in moments like this." "Thank you for giving me a chance," Marcus replied. "For seeing me as more than a janitor, for trusting me with meaningful work, for letting Emily and me into your life." "Our life," Victoria corrected gently. "Somewhere along the way, it became our life. If that's okay."